Ladies and gentlemen, I am here today to talk to you about a subject which is slightly different from what you've been used to for the last day and a half. You're all dealing with money, you're dealing with how to double it, triple it, etc. I am the only one who spends all that you earn. So I am from the defense where we cannot earn, but we can earn something much bigger than what you earn. And that's what I value it. And that is the country's honor. So we, in the army, take the oath to preserve that. So my subject of talk today is that. I have had a very large number of incidents which has taken me from life to death. And I've touched death number of times and come back. This is where I find myself in a job which is unique, a job which is very satisfying, a job which can take me away as well as close to humanity. We in the army have a unique method of inculcating leadership qualities, which really is what is required of an army officer to lead. And we have to lead in an area, in an arena, which is wrought with most difficult and most dangerous, challenging situations. They can't be anything more precious than life, and we deal with it. Doctors deal with it, but they are in the comfort of their operation theaters. We are absolutely in the open. In the army, we select people on the basis of scientific methods of selection. Once they come to the army, they go to the academy where they are taught the skills of becoming an officer. Teaching skills is not difficult, but to make a leader, it is very difficult, because a leader is not born. That's what my experience of 34 years tells me. They are made, but they're not made by teaching skills. They are made by constantly being told what are the opportunities. It's for you to take it. If you take it, you take the risk, you understand it, you become a leader. And if you don't, well, you float along. So we have soldiers who have done wonders. They are soldiers who could not rise up to the occasion. Therefore, when I talk about leadership, it is basically those who have been able to take that. Not that others have not performed. They also performed. But these fault lines are very deep. But in the face of enemy, when we face death of our colleagues, a bigger responsibility than your saving your own self, that is where we are able to obliterate the fault lines and come to the front line. I would like to describe our training this way. At the military academy at Dehradun, we are taught the skills, but at the same time, a lot of times, the motto is flashed on for us to read and apply. It reads, very simple, the safety, honor, and welfare of your country comes first, always and every time. The honor, welfare, and comfort of the men you command comes next, and you are the last. You may have all the comfort, you may have the rank, you may have power, but your own safety comes last. That is where the leader is made. The first two don't make leaders that much. It's the last one which makes the leaders. Just to tell you how it transforms into actually performing and making a difference, I have a number of incidents. I have actually been I've gone through so many of them that people have started calling me a man who could not die, because I touched death a number of times, but I returned. I would today only relate two incidents, or two events rather. First one was 1971 Indo-Pak War, when Bangladesh was created. That's what East Pakistan was, as you see here. And it was surrounded by 6 of our states: West Bengal, Bihar, Assam, Meghalaya, Tripura, and Mizoram. We had planned to go in from all directions, and I was part of the thrust which started from Agartala. I was a second lieutenant, just out of the academy, 2 years service, 22 years age. We entered, the war actually started on 3rd, a declared war, but preliminary operations, in the garb of preliminary operations, the operations had actually started 2 days earlier. We entered, and the first objective was a place called Akhara. This is in Pakistan at that time, now Bangladesh. Being a border town, it was fortified heavily. We took 3 days, or rather 2 nights and 2 days, to be able to get over it. It was a tough nut to crack. Thereafter, we were to cross Asuganj, which is in the north. You can see the roundel. And there it is, Asuganj is located on the banks of river Meghna. And that's the only railway bridge to cross over to the other side. And the other side is Bhairo Bazaar, which is a cantonment. And thereafter, it was a free run up to Dhaka. There were no deployment thereafter. Pakistan or East Pakistan did not ever think that we will ever go up to that point. Here, I would like to say that when we crossed Akhara, we quickly rushed towards Agartala, to Asuganj, and pushed the enemy so badly at such a lightning speed that he did not know what to do. All his troops on this side of the river got trapped between us and the river. With the back towards the river, they did not know what to do. In panic, they blew up the bridge. This was the bridge on the left, which was there intact before the blowing, and this is after that. This is how it looks now when I revisited it recently, or in 2011. This is how it looked. This is made by a Calcutta company by India. Thereafter, we changed our direction because it had lost its significance. So we marched towards Dhaka and we entered Dhaka. I, at the head of my company, as a second lieutenant, was the first to reach Dhaka from the eastern side. It was 16th morning, early morning at 4 o'clock, we entered Dhaka. Here you can see me here. Two incidents here which I would like to relate. One is that when we captured Akhara, the enemy fought very well, but during the exploitation, when we were trying to finish off the odd firers who still continued to fire, there was a soldier, Pakistani soldier, barely 18 years old. He continued to fire on us because he did not realize that we had already captured the entire Akhada. However, we managed to wound him with a machine gun, and he raised his hands and surrendered. My men quickly went and disarmed him, and thereafter wanted to kill him because they were full of rage because our own men had been killed by the enemy. So there was no mercy shown by them. But on my motivation, they stopped. But he was bleeding very badly in the knee. So I told them, let's give him first aid and let's evacuate him to our first aid organization so that he can be repatriated sometime later. They refused to do it. I took out my own shell dressing and tourniqueted his thigh. Seeing this, my men totally changed their attitude. They were later overheard, saying that if our officer can do such a thing to an enemy Jawan, what he can do to us, for us. And therefore, it totally changed my standing among my men. And this is called leadership. And that is where I became not only an officer, but a leader officer. Second incident was in Asuganj. We had pushed the enemy so badly that he had no reaction time and he had blown up the bridge. He had no option but to stick on to that place. He was dominating us, and as we advanced, he was able to get each one of us with a pot shot. He was having a pot shot at each one of us. Which means I had about 3 platoons worth of people. Then he asked me to, rather he sent me some more reinforcement. That reinforcement also came and also got bogged down because of the effective fire from the enemy side. The CO again told me that you stick on. I told him that the number of casualties that we are having, it is not possible for us to stay on. But he said, don't panic. Since I was under order, I knew it was suicidal, but I had no option. So therefore, I told my men, I took a command decision that, well, I am under orders to stay on here. I order you people to leave. 3 of my men refused to obey me. They said, if you can die here, so can we. And that is leadership. That is where we are different from others. Just then, the orders came from Monsieur that please withdraw because the enemy had started a counter-attack. When that happened, I had no option but to jump into a manhole which was close by. But what were the conditions in that is worse than dying. Fortunately, it was a very short distance that we had to cover, and we came out in the open. So what I'm talking about was the leadership, how it gets instilled not by reading and acquiring skills, but by actually thinking of your men whom you command and personally giving example. The next, of course, is Siachen, where I am the first human being on Siachen, along with Colonel N. Kumar, a famous mountaineer. And having been there, the incident was, this is Siachen. On the right is me. We put the tricolor on the Indra Col in 1981, where the conditions at that time were very, very difficult. It's not as comfortable as it is now, if I call it comfort. And there were no surveys, no maps, no satellite pictures, no equipment. Clandestinely, I had to go and buy equipment from an abandoned Everest expedition from Nepal, bring that equipment, which was not to our size. One boot was 8, other was 9, and yet we had to do that. There was no system of evacuation. During this time, we climbed, the rightmost is me. With Sia Kangri, thereafter, this is what happened. If you see, this is what happens to a person when he is there on Siachen at that time. All your skin gets blistered with cold. It actually tears. One of the men that I was part of my team accidentally went into a crevice. I volunteered to go into that because taking out a person from a crevice is nearly impossible. But it was a shallow crevice. I volunteered to go in and pull him out. But in the bargain, my team totally forgot about me. And by the time they realized that I had done this, I was totally dead. If they had moved my finger or my leg or any of them part, it would have cracked and broken. And then it was thanks to Mrs. Gandhi at that time that the helicopters which had been actually sort of not allowed to fly in that area, she gave a special permission and I was evacuated to this thing and I was saved. So these two incidents were the incidents which indicated my ability to be able to lead people in the most difficult terrain, most difficult situations, most difficult conditions, only by giving a personal example. I have been through death, as I told you, so many times that people have started saying that you purposely go into death. But I tell them that, look, to live, I wanted to get rid of or overcome the fear of death. Thank you.
last 2 decades was on the back of its emergence as a major supplier of technical services and talent. In the past 2 or 3 years, another segment which is offering an exciting technology and talent pool to the country is gaming. The online gaming industry is projected to generate a staggering 25 billion in revenues by 2030. In fact, at an event in the national capital 2 years ago, the Honorable Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi ji emphasized that India should tap the huge potential in the digital gaming arena. India is now launching a Create in India campaign with exclusive focus on content creation in India, for India, and for the world. What does the power of video games and the game engine technology entail? And who better to talk to us about this than Quinton Stays-Pollet, Managing Director, Unreal Engine, International Operations, Epic Games. Please welcome Quinton Stays-Pollet. Thank you.
Thank you. Hello, good afternoon. When I came for the first time in India a bit over 20 years ago, I was working for IBM, and my role was to, across Asia Pacific, help the transition for media companies and for telecom companies from analog to digital. And I fell in love with the place. And at the same time, I was working also in Korea, in China, and I discovered mass multiplayer online gaming. I wasn't a gamer at all. And I was absolutely fascinated. Our technology, art, social were coming together in a new form of entertainment. How all of the applications that we saw there on mass multiplayer were actually precursor of what companies in Silicon Valley would develop over the next 15 years. Video chat that was done in the early 2000s for game players over there, social profiles, 3D graphics at scale, cloud at the back end. All of this emerged and was experimented through gaming. And what I'm going to try to very quickly summarize today, and it's a very short period of time, I can speak about this for hours, is how first video game in general have driven innovation, but more importantly, adoption of technology in the history since the 50s. And then I will try to show you and give you a glimpse of what the latest technologies, game engine, are going to do for us. They're going to change the world over the next 5 years or 10 years, even faster than what you've seen in the last 20. So just to make sure that, you know, it's not some random guy talking to you about this, there's a few other people who've said this before me. You know, the inventor of Linux, also a great designer, Jim McGonigal. You know, game can make things better. Game changes people, it changes society. Bill Gates said the same, Elon Musk said the same, Steve Jobs said the same. Game have always been an easy entry point for technology adoption, but also for innovation. So I'm going to start by the 50s, where, you know, the very early, after the war and the first emergence of computing, they wanted to popularize it. And so at the time, there was no so much TV, etc. We were doing exhibitions, world exhibitions, etc. And the first computer scientists decided that games was the best way to show off what compute was doing, to popularize it. So you can see a few examples here in the 50s, Bertie the Brain, Nimrod, and also the first invention of a tennis game that was showing off real-time interaction. So that's in the 50s. If that clicker works with me, yeah, here we go. Games also, with game theory, etc., started to be the first tests and the first example of what compute could build. So Arthur Samuel was in the 60s, all this, testing the first machine learning, what we call AI today. He invented a program that could learn checkers from interaction with players. It took 30 years, though, for computers to fully master checkers. In '89, the Chinook team. And you all remember in '97 when Deep Blue at IBM also defeated the world champion, the top master, Garry Kasparov, at chess. Now, in the 60s and 70s, those early compute were moved into those very large computer. In the war, only the states could have computer. Universities in the 60s started to have big computer. None of us could get any. But the first programs that really spread around universities were actually games. And so the first computer scientists, Bill Gates, Jobs, etc., actually learned on those big machines in universities, and they learned through games. In the early 70s, the first from those scientists, one of them created a company called Atari and launched the first console. And in the 70s, sold about 350,000 pieces of those consoles and in homes in the US. That is really the first computers, if you will, that entered the home. 350,000 in the early 70s in the home. And in the 80s, the same console will go on to sell 30 million in the homes. So it really drove penetration of compute in households. At the same time, microprocessors started to disrupt something that was much more casual, which were the arcades, you know, pinball machines and all of those things, and pool. Suddenly, they could build those arcade box with many, many games in it with chips, and it collapsed the price and it totally took over the arcade business. So early microprocessor effect on mass consumption of compute. In the 80s, as I said, 30 million console enter the households around the world. But also in the later 80s, computer gaming, LAN gaming drove penetration of high-end PCs in the home. People were assembling their machine, were mostly young gamers who brought compute into the home. And also start developing graphic interface. I mean, everybody use computers today. All interfaces are graphics. Those were developed mostly for games initially. And also games started to impact other things. So I don't know if you remember the game SimCity that would allow you to do urban planning. It really changed. It brought a lot of people to urban planning, popularized it, and really drove massive change there. In the 90s, Jensen Huang from NVIDIA started to think maybe it's better not to have one single processor, and this whole graphic interface, we need to push it much faster, and he invented what we call GPU, graphic processing unit, that sped up the display of graphics 700 times. So very dramatic. And the only reason he was able to do that is because he knew he had a market of gamers that would buy this. And they buy it at scale and will allow him to produce with economy of scale and bring the price of compute down quite dramatically. IBM and Toshiba did the same by supplying a chip, which was the first multi-thread chip, multi-processor chip, to enter in the PS3. That chip was then optimized for the PlayStation, but then they discovered it was very useful in the cloud, which wasn't the cloud, it was just data center at the time. And they would put on blades hundreds of those chips and increase dramatically, create basically supercomputers out of game chips, right? Let's see if we can move. And then, once you got this massive opportunity, you can move from 2D to 3D. And game company like Nintendo then started to innovate in terms of what is it to navigate on a 2D screen in 3D universe. And, invented a lot of those interactions, the way or you view or the camera moves that are used every day today in most other compute and are still very dominant in game. I'm going to get this a little bit faster. Emergence of the internet, Korea, which was the most wild country in the early 2000s, esports took off. And so now it's a new sport, probably in the Olympics in the next few things. So creation of a new industry, literally. That's today is grown dramatically and is booming in India right now. A little bit of connection here. Mobile gaming. Just for fun, in 1997, Nokia included a little snake game and then after a little Tetris game. And they very quickly realized that people were spending more time playing games than actually taking calls. And so games became something very dominant in all phones. And an whole industry came out of mobile game. Because of that, at least partially because of that, development on larger screen, etc. And finally, Apple came up with the iPhone, which changed all of our life in the last 15 years, right? Today, over 50% of the gaming market worldwide is on mobile. And in India, I don't have to tell you the story of Jio. Today, India is the largest market for mobile game in terms of download, with 15 billion downloads a year, over 2 billion cumulative monthly active users on all the titles that are being played in India. Absolutely staggering number in the space of 5 years. So in 98, Epic Game, who I work with, started to create more and more complex games and realized they needed special tools to do this. And those were called game engine, because you need to do sound, you need to do physics, you need to do 3D graphics, you need to have interaction. It's like 10 software put together to create an immersive 3D full experience. So that, we built that tool to create games, and we started to offering it to all the other developers. Unity also came in 2005 and started to focus on another part of the game ecosystem. And now we have very powerful tool that can simulate reality or fantasies with a very high level of detail and very high performance, and can optimize compute on all kind of devices at the same time. You play on console, you play on mobile, you play on your PC. Basically, very, very powerful and flexible tool. Now, this is those tools that are going to change the world over the next few years. So, who's Epic Game? We're another startup. We're a 30-year-old company, 50 offices worldwide, over 4,000 employees. Quite a big company. We have a very famous game called Fortnite, which is probably one of the largest games in the world, that is built using Unreal Engine. And today, over 50% of the new games announced and being released on the new console that were released are built on this engine. Including, let's see if I get this right, a really nice game based on Indian mythology, which is really the first AA game, AAA game that has been coming out of India, out of Pune, and that's been, global success. I would love to show you the whole thing, but the clock here is finishing. So I will move on to the next and try to cover everything. Now, what's very interesting is that when this technology is available, a lot of creators, designers, architects, movie makers suddenly realize the power of that technology and start adopting them for their own industries. So now we have a broad adoption through our architecture, film. We have some of the latest film here in Bollywood that a big part of them have been done using this technology. Some of the top grossing movie in the last literally 2-3 months. This little clicker is resisting to me. Creating content is super expensive. And one of our objective is, as a company, is to collapse that cost, to use technology that is collaborative, that's immersive, to collapse the cost of creation. And so we've been basically building a tool set, as well as building assets of libraries of content that can be assembled very quickly together in a way that's much, much cheaper than what it's been. The consumption of content has gone through the roof through social media, through OTT platform, through personalization of content. And there's a need for more and more and more content, and the cost is too high, so we were trying to collapse it to enable more creativity. Over 500 movies since 2016, and literally hundreds are added every year, have been using this technology. And we can change things like scan an environment before it's, where we want to shoot, pre-visualize the entire movie, where the camera, where the actors are moving, where the lighting needs to be. And everybody agrees, and then when we come on stage, we actually put that environment with LED screen like this that surround the actor, and so you don't need to go on location anymore. You don't need to bring your entire crew and their buses and wait for the perfect sunset. You can have a sunset that lasts an entire day. And you have an environment that's exactly the reproduction of a real environment or your fantasy environment, right? So it's absolutely magic. TV, you've seen now how they do sports, weather, cricket. A lot of anchors are immersed into this content. That's using game technology. Most of the cricket games you are watching already on Star Sports are using this. Or they layer graphics, or they layer interaction, or they do scenario. Am I buzzed? I'm buzzed. I will skip the video then, which will show you a bit more. The last couple of things I want to share. Automotive, this is the next step for automotive company. They are the next media consumption platform. Screens are going everywhere in car. Car being designed virtually first in game engine. They are being tested. They are being experienced. They are being marketed. And then content is fed through game engine inside the car for immersion. Those little screens you have now in your car and that are going to grow over the next 10 years to take more and more space, a lot of the technology that's in there is now game engines that are serving, that are updating. It's just the most flexible ways to do it. So your next media consumption platform is going to be your car. And then we've done a very interesting things. We've created a platform. In the past, if you want to create a realistic character for a game, it takes about 3 people 6 months and costs about $1.5 million. We've been scanning and using AI to create a platform that allows now somebody with barely a couple of hours of learning to go online and create a digital twin of a human being in a matter of hours. So when we're talking about collapsing content, cost, and production, this is from 6 months, 3 people, $1.5 million for one character, to any of us here in a few hours being able to do the same thing. And so that's the effort, that's the power of game technology, that's the power of game engine technology and of those ecosystems. And I promise you over the next 10 years, it's absolutely going to be mind-blowing how your world is going to change thanks to this. Thank you.
We live in an era of disruption in which powerful global forces are changing the way we live and work. The rapid spread of digital technologies and challenges to globalization. These and other global trends offer considerable new opportunities to companies, sectors, countries, and individuals. To elaborate on the subject, thriving under disruption, it is my privilege to welcome François Otello-Magnet, Dean and CEO, London Business School, in conversation with Anish Srikrishna, CEO, Times Pro. Ladies and gentlemen.
Whom do you serve? Whom do you serve as executives, as leaders, as investors, innovators, advisors? Whom do you serve? The answer to this question was critical to London Business School's resilience during the pandemic. I'm offering you this question today because in my experience as a Dean of London Business School, I've learned how it's essential not just to resilience, but to influence, to dominance, and eventually to thriving under disruption. Resilience first. When COVID hit, at London Business School, we had to cancel so many student experiences. The classes on our campus in Dubai and in frustration and even at times anger. In one of my meetings with our students, there was a representative who stood up and said, "Dean, it's on you to find the win-win." No. There was no win-win. I'm sure you experienced the same yourselves. This was a time of arbitrage of losses, dealing with allocating those losses, cutting costs, asking for salary sacrifices and more. And at that time, having a clear answer to this question, whom do we serve, proved essential to guide our decisions and our efforts. And so the question is, at London Business School, whom do we serve? We are a charity, no owners, no shareholders. The governors, they come and go. The students, they do pay. They pay tuition to get a degree. But there's more to it, isn't it? I don't know if any student who has ever bought a degree from us to put it on the wall and bask in the glory of the framed diploma. Now, if you think about it from an economic perspective, at LBS, we have a monopoly power in the creation of LBS alumni. No one else can do that. And if you ask what is our most durable asset, it's also our alumni. Because once they're an alum for life. They cannot go to our competition and say, "I got a degree from London Business School, can I pay your alumni fees?" We're tied together. Their reputation is our reputation. As their dean, I wear a lapel pin, they might as well get a tattoo. So you see the response emerging. Whom do we serve? At LBS, it starts with our alumni. And that was essential during the pandemic for us to decide what to focus on. So, for example, when the pandemic hit and we had to go into lockdown in March 2020, we had 1,617 students who were on their way to graduate by July, to become alumni by July. So our efforts went all out to make sure that by July, they had done all their degree requirements. At the same time, we were recruiting the next class. We serve our alumni. So we kept our admissions process selective, even though we were under significant financial strain. Why? Because we need to uphold the reputation of our alumni. And then, of course, we learned very quickly during the pandemic that there were ways in which we could support our alumni during these difficult times with content and connections for the new normal we were in. And today, the answer to that same question, whom do we serve, is helping us grow our influence. Why? Because we've learned during the pandemic, it was actually quite a catalyst to help us understand how is it we can provide content and connection to help our alumni advance their careers, support their entrepreneurial ventures, and transform their organizations. Because our influence is their influence. And as an example, I'll use a local organization here in Delhi. Some of you might know Dharma Life. Dharma Life is dedicated to improving life in rural India by giving low-income households access to critical products and services. Dharma Life, Google them. Not now. But when you Google them, you will find out that they are very clear as to whom they serve. They serve a network of entrepreneurs whom they select, they train, they support to be change makers in their villages. And today, Dharma Life has a network of 17,500 entrepreneurs who are active in more than 50,000 villages across 14 states in India. That's influence. From influence to dominance, I'll get insight from another organization that is known to all of you in India, that is also led by an alumnus of London Business School. And that is the Aditya Birla Group, led by Kumar Mangalam Birla. I don't know if you know this, but he got an MBA from us in 1993, and shortly thereafter took over the group. And he's led the group with the same commitment to serving society that his great-grandfather imparted on him, Sri J.K. Birla. You might remember, some of you from him, that he talked about way before corporate social responsibility was something. He talked about ownership in trust of society, about entrepreneurs as custodians of societal wealth. And today, as his dean, when I see what Kumar is doing, I can't help but notice that he remains very much animated, fueled by this desire to do well for society, to serve society through high-performing businesses, educational institutions, and many philanthropic endeavors. So if that's resilience and influence and dominance, how I define thriving? Thriving is when those whom we serve, they join in to serve with us. And that linear path of resilience, influence, dominance becomes a self-reinforcing loop. Whom you serve joined in to serve with you. What would happen in your organization, or what is already happening in your organization, if those whom you serve are serving with you? At LBS, what you would see is our alumni helping us recruit students, participate in classes, host visits, and with their philanthropy, funding scholarships and innovation and research, and so many more. And there again, Kumar Birla is an example for us, because he funds one of our most generous scholarships for 10 bright minds from around the world to join our school every year. And he does it in the most beautiful way, with an endowment gift in the name of and in gratitude to his grandfather, B.K. Birla. And as Dean of LBS, I couldn't be more proud to be associated with this manifestation of gratitude of Kumar toward his grandfather. And there maybe lies inspiration to push my question one step further. Whom do you serve, and in gratitude to whom? And what I offer to you is that having a clear answer to this question can only help you with resilience, influence, dominance, and inspiring others to join in with you so that they thrive with you. Whom do you serve, and in gratitude to whom? As the Dean of LBS, I serve our employees, starting with my senior management team. And I'm grateful to them because they gave me the opportunity to be here today and go around the world and inspire current and future leaders of the world, people like you. Whom do you serve, and in gratitude to whom? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dean.
Thank you.
So, Dean Francois, that was a wonderful articulation of thriving under disruption by putting the focus on whom you serve. I'd like to look at disruption from our higher education and executive education standpoint. Now, as we know, higher education has been at the heart of a debate for a long time, pre-COVID, and now post-COVID, that debate is even sharper. And the debate is about the accessibility and affordability of excellence in higher education. Talk to us about how some of these new trends in higher education technology have disrupted schools like London Business School during and before COVID, and how you've coped and how you've thrived.
So you won't be surprised, I'll start from my question. So as a school, it's very clear how much our alumni value their network and the selectivity of it. And so for us, whom do we serve, is to take advantage of the disruption, to use technology to serve them through the rest of their life. And to get ourselves into a position whereby, at any point in time, we can give them those content and connections. So it's not like, on Amazon, they tell you, you bought this book, you might like that book. No, it's a lot more saying, given where you are today in your career, we think 2 years from now you'll be there. Here's how we can help you speed up the transition with content and with connection. The bigger trend, I think, that's at play in the world for all of us is because our lives have become longer, but the life of the organization has gotten shorter. So we will all live longer than our organizations anyway. And so this idea that you're born, you go to education, you work, you die, that's over. and what I see is happening, and you're doing that yourself, is an opportunity for people to complement their education, not just with the big chunky things like degree programs, but over the course of their life, getting little bite size. And then the question is, who is going to do the curation? And you're trying to do that, and we're trying to do this for our alumni.
But how do you see innovation in higher education taking its course over the next few years? We've seen companies like Times Pro come in and become online program managers, bring you back consumer insight, take your excellence in bite-sized package to the learners. But how do you see the next decade of innovation and disruption?
So there's one element I can see, and you're an actor of it, and there's one, it's a big question for all of us. So what I can see is actors like you who are using technology and data and very soon, if not already, artificial intelligence to really bring great insight to the masses. And that's really important in a country like India, particularly because there's such motivation for education here that you want to make it available. So that I can see, and we're all actors of that, one way or another, and being pushed in a way, the legacy schools, by innovators like you. What I don't see is, in this future world, who is going to support academic research? And that's a big problem, and I'll give you just one reason. Today, if I look at LBS faculty, we were ranked recently as the #2 faculty in the world for research on the Sustainable Development Goals. That's not because a few years ago our faculty or the dean said, do this. That's because we are faculty who care about impact. 15 years ago, they were working on some obscure mathematical issues about how do you model the short term versus the long term to understand sustainability. Thank goodness at the time, they had the freedom to do this. Who is tomorrow going to give the freedom to those selected individuals to explore obscure questions so that 15 years from now, we have academics who are relevant? And that to me is a big question for all of us as human beings, is who is funding fundamental research?
And to bring to your point about impact, you've written and spoken about the role of London Business School, and you've spoken in terms of a very catchy phrase called impact squared.
Impact squared,
Talk
yes.
about that a bit.
So what happened is, when I became Dean of LBS, we articulated our purpose as having a profound impact on the way the world does business. And as a new Dean, I went around the world and I met with our alumni, I listened to our faculty, to my colleagues, and I realized there was something missing in the sentence. Because people were not just worried about an impact on the way the world does business, but people were worried about the way business impacts the world. So in a speech I said, I think we are about having a profound impact on the way the world does business and on the way business impacts the world. So if you do the math of that sentence, a bit long, but it's about profound impact, and then it's profound impact on impact, that's impact squared. So that's what we're trying to do. Profound impact and impact squared. But I hope you understand that it is so important that business schools like ours worry about the impact business has on the world. And part of it is the conversation that we are having here.
And when it comes to impact, we cannot get away from that subject without talking about the impact of government on everything that we do in higher education. And in India, we've just gone through it.
The government just buzzed you.
But I think we'll take this one last question and then maybe open it up to the audience. In India now, we just have the new education policy.
Yes.
And the government is talking about opening up Indian shores to foreign universities and institutions such as yourself to come in and step up shop. So do we see LBS setting up shop quickly in India? What's your take on this?
So we are very focused on our strategies to serve our alumni. We do that from a London hub. We have about 1,000 alumni here. We can serve them from London. I had a delightful evening with them 2 nights ago here. So we have no plans to come in here. Can I say it was interesting to see this policy, particularly because in India there are amazing universities already. I mean, the evidence I have firsthand is the quality of the students who come from India into London Business School. So if I had the chance to say a word to the policymakers, I would encourage them to focus on, in India, research, get research to happen here. How do you fund that? And the other question that I see is the big gap in India is the training of professors. What I observe is you all know how to do education, but you don't have enough faculty members to run those universities. The government should focus on serving the faculty so that they can serve the students.
That's wonderful, Dean. I think we'll take 2 questions from the audience. I see Professor Prabhu.
You have about these regulations and allowing foreign higher education institutions in India?
So I referred to our situation, and I've talked about the gap I see and the opportunity, which is to get research to happen in the country. Because I think it would be very important, particularly because the country is changing so fast. And frankly, I don't think it would take much to get researchers interested, because so much is happening here, and researchers care about their impact. If I were to push on your question and look at evidence I see from other countries in the world that have tried to bring in foreign institutions, yesterday someone mentioned the risk about copy-pasting. It's very difficult for foreign institutions to come in and be effective. And in particular, it's tough to convince your faculty to be there on a permanent basis and get engaged with the local community. So, you know, we have invested in Dubai. We now have a good presence in the Middle East, and that's already plenty for us to manage, and we are committed to it. Here, I hope that you will find ways to do partnerships that help plug the gap. But the gap I see here is not one of educational technology or know-how how to run education, in particular how to run at scale. And the other thing I observe in India is often the disruption we experience, they come from you guys. so I don't know where that goes, but I hope that the legislation will facilitate that type of partnership, because there is something we can provide with regard to the research and the engines that we have. And then hopefully find a way to complement one another, because, for example, LBS, we are not in the position to do the kind of mass education that Indian providers can bring to the market. And maybe we can find partnerships in this way.
Right. So you're saying scale is something we know how to do best?
Sorry?
I said we know scale.
You know?
India knows scale is what
Well,
is.
yeah, I think so. Just look at the quality of the students you send to us. They're outstanding.
Oh.
They're outstanding. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Prabhu. Thank you so much, Dean Francois. I think our time is up. We need to carry on this conversation offline.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank
everyone.
you so much.
Thank you.
The growing population and globalization both have consequences in terms of mobility within major urban areas. The challenge is to create smooth and seamless commuting for everyone by addressing multimodality within smart cities. What does the future of mobility look like? Let's hear it from Hiroyuki Murai, Chief Strategy Officer, SkyDrive. Give him a warm welcome, ladies and gentlemen.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me? Okay. First of all, I'd like to say that thank you for having me at this wonderful conference. And thank you, everyone, for coming to watch my speech. My name is Hiro Murai, the Chief Strategy Officer of SkyDrive, responsible for building product and business strategy of SkyDrive. SkyDrive is top air mobility company in Japan and building flying cars for the future. Flying cars are called as eVTOL in the world as well. Now, the air mobility revolution is already happening. Please look at this video about how we are dreaming it.
この先渋滞中、飛行モードを推奨します。飛行可能エリアに入りました。
東京のオフィスまで。
かしこまりました。候補が2カ所あります。
It will be happen in the future for sure. And we are building these flying cars. We believe flying cars will be the seamless land and air transportation machine in the future. We believe flying cars have tremendous competitive advantages compared to the current air transportation from two perspectives. First, low manufacturing and maintenance cost. Second, low operation cost. Due to simple structure and electric-based energy system, fewer parts are required for manufacturing the vehicle, and the maintenance cost can also be lowered. Moreover, electrification and automation can further reduce the labor, energy, maintenance, and other operating costs. These factors are all contributing to significantly lowering the service price of flying cars. The quietness is one competitive advantage of the flying car. Due to its electric powering system, flying cars generate the lowest noise among all modern transportation machines. And due to its compact size, lightweight structure, and vertical takeoff landing capability, flying car can utilize the existing facilities and infrastructure for its operation. Flying car's advantages. It means battery-powered autonomous flight capability and vertical takeoff landing ability enable the daily use of the sky. Thanks to these advantages and advanced technology of flying cars, many institutions forecast the urban air mobility market will grow to huge industry. Morgan Stanley project the TAM of its sector to grow to 1.5 trillion US dollars in 2040. And due to improvement of the battery technology, the cruising range of electric vehicle increased almost 3 times from 2010 to 2019. We can also expect the same or even better outcome of flying cars' cruising range. At SkyDrive, we really believe the potential of flying cars, and we are working very hard to make this dream come true and build a product which can utilize all the flying cars' advantages to serve our client. Please have a look at our product that we are developing now. Can be used to fly between cities. And however, we are building a multi-copter type of the product, which is more compact and can be used to fly within a city. Now, many players are working on their flying car product in different countries. For example, Joby Aviation in US, Borg EHang in China, and of course, SkyDrive in Japan. Most of the players are targeting to commercialize around 2025. We are very excited about the future of urban air mobility. Just like I explained previously, SkyDrive is trying to build a multi-copter, which will be more compact compared to the fixed-wing product. This will enable us to provide our product and service by utilizing the existing means hundreds of thousands locations can be utilized even only in Japan. We are very excited about the future of urban air mobility, and we are so happy that we can be one of the companies to build this future to change the world and provide safer and convenient transportation service and product to people. Thank you for listening about our dream of flying cars. Thank you.
The critical role of technology and innovation in driving the agenda for sustainable businesses and communities can never be overemphasized. Another proposal fast gaining ground is the circular economy, which challenges the current linear value chain. To give insights on concerns in the New World Order, technology and sustainability, navigate economic turbulence, please welcome Ben Driggs, President and CEO, Global High Honeywell. Thank you.
For the opportunity to speak at this conference. I've certainly learned a lot from the other speakers and from all the attendees as well. It really has been outstanding. When you think of sustainability, this is a challenge the whole world faces, and companies have put themselves on the forefront of this challenge. 55% of the global 200 companies have already committed to be carbon neutral or to have significant reductions in the future. And about 90% of executives say they're increasing their sustainability investments and that they are committed to making sustainability part of their business transformation. So the challenge is companies are publicly committed around the world. Governments say this is a priority, but how do you actually get this done? And what role does technology play? And what's the range of levers that you can actually pull to have a real impact on sustainability? So I want to talk a little bit about a framework that I think is helpful to think about what to do to have an impact on sustainability and how companies can think about using technology in that. And the framework is a very simple one. And I think everybody needs to think about doing things in both dimensions of this framework. And one is energy conservation. We must think about how we get the same output using less energy for existing assets. We have to reduce demand. So that's one set of activities. And in some ways, that can have the nearest term impact on sustainability is the energy conservation side of the equation. The other thing that needs to be thought about is the energy transition. How do we actually move to cleaner fuels, and how do we actually have a decarbonized fuels that serve all the different segments that exist today? So I want to take you through a little bit of this framework, and what's really exciting about working at Honeywell is we try to address both sides of this equation, both energy conservation and energy transition. So when you think about energy conservation, the most important thing, and this sounds very basic, but it's something that I think companies are really struggling with, is you have to establish your baseline. And today, most companies, when they estimate their emissions, it is done with a lot of assumptions. And there is no real scoreboard that actually is enabling you to say, how am I doing, and how do I manage improvements or things that I'm implementing? So the first step has to be, let's get to an actual baseline. Let's use digital technology, which is very much available today. Let's sensorize our factories and our buildings and actually establish a real-time baseline to monitor our emissions. So this is sort of step number one. And I want to talk about a few different sectors where we think energy conservation is very much possible. First is buildings. Depending on how you look at the denominator, buildings account for somewhere between 25% to 45% of total carbon emissions in the world today. So buildings clearly have to be more efficient, but we also want buildings to be comfortable, and we have to have sort of the same quality inside buildings that we've come to expect. The great thing about reducing energy consumption in buildings is that technology is very much existent today. In most facilities, if you update using the existing building controls but putting smart algorithms on top and some minimum amount of sensors, you can reduce energy consumption in buildings by somewhere between 10 and 25%. even the most advanced buildings, and I'll give you just one example of in Dubai, the Burj Khalifa, they were able to, most advanced systems, they were still able to recognize a significant reduction when they put smart algorithms on top of their system. So it shows you the power that exists even in very modern buildings. In older buildings, you can have significant reductions in energy consumption by modernizing the controls and putting smart algorithms in that make sure the heating, the cooling, and the lighting work to the optimal level and not to the maximum level that the current controls may indicate that they should. The next area is plants or manufacturing facilities. In manufacturing facilities, if you put in smart algorithms for energy optimization, you probably can't get quite as big of a reduction as you can in buildings because they're already monitored and managed fairly closely. But you can still get high single-digit returns just by adding algorithms to this picture. And this is, again, a very powerful tool that you have within digitalization technology. But the other area that is perhaps incredibly important, that is low-hanging fruit, is reducing gas leakage and fugitive gases. President Biden at COP27 in November in Sharm el-Sheikh, Egypt, talked about methane. Methane has a huge impact on the environment, and there's very easy opportunities to install equipment to monitor methane leaks, to quantify methane leaks, and then actually go fix them. And these are the type of things that can have a significant near-term impact on emissions. Transportation is another area that is critical to focus on conservation. Here, aircraft routing, there's significant opportunities to be more efficient in that routing. There's significant opportunities in truck routing in other areas. And one of the key technologies that we see as being critical to the future is quantum computing. When you think of quantum computing, what it can take is very large, highly variable data sets and actually come up with ways to optimize that. And when you think of the number of routing and transportation and cargo and others, significant opportunities exist there. Refrigeration is another critical area. We all learned during COVID, and we all see a significant growth in cold storage facilities. And there's very significant opportunities to do new refrigerant gases that can dramatically reduce the energy usage in cold storage facilities as well as all other areas. When we think of perhaps some of the most successful environmental global legislation, the Montreal Protocol and the corresponding Kigali Amendment may be the best example of a global program that had a dramatic impact on improving the environment. And the Kigali Amendment, with bringing the full world into using HFOs and others less globally harming refrigerant gases, is a significant opportunity to have a big impact on conservation. I want to spend a little bit of time now focused on energy transition. An energy transition, similar to conservation, there's no one fuel or one solution that's likely going to solve all of our problems. We need to look at a variety of different solutions. And let me start off with advanced biofuels. There's a lot of transportation assets out there that are going to be around for 10, 20, 30 years that are going to require some sort of fuel. Aircraft and trucks, cargo trucks, are maybe two good examples of this. But what exists today is the opportunity to use advanced biofuels using a variety of different feedstocks, from used cooking oil to agricultural waste to algae to many other things, to actually produce sustainable aviation fuel and green diesel. And this is a significant opportunity for these assets that are going to continue moving for decades in the future to actually have a significant reduction in their carbon impact. One of the areas that I think could be most important for India is ethanol to jet, or ethanol to green diesel. India is a major producer of ethanol today, has significant capacity, but the technology now exists to take that ethanol and produce sustainable aviation fuel or green diesel, and this can make a significant impact on the future of those segments and their sustainability impact. Renewables. Renewables, another key area. I think we all know battery energy storage is a key thing there. Significant advancements in battery energy technology like flow batteries can have a significant impact on that aspect. And I do want to talk a little bit about the hard-to-abate segments. The hard-to-abate segments we know is one of the big challenges. It was mentioned in speeches yesterday and today, things like steel, cement, other segments. But carbon capture technology is improving dramatically. Both pre- and post-combustion, carbon capture technologies can have a significant impact, and as policies are formed around those, that can make some of these hard-to-abate segments really reduce their overall impact. And then on the circular economy, this is another tremendous opportunity that exists in the world today. We know globally, plastics is obviously a key material, and plastics are used everywhere. But current mechanical recycling only enables about 10% of that plastic to be economically viably recycled. The great thing is technology is offering solutions again. Chemical recycling of plastic can mean about 80% of waste plastic can actually be recycled and create recyclable polymer oil that can go into new plastic being created. This is a tremendous opportunity and one of the largest problems that we have in the world. There's also opportunities to use significant amount of waste plastic in road building. And we think of countries like India, but it's true for many countries around the world. The infrastructure investment is significant. If we can also have the circular economy of using waste plastic to build those roads and have those roads be longer lasting, it's really a win-win and a great example of how technology can have an impact on the environment. And then finally, I want to finish with hydrogen. Hydrogen is definitely part of the solution going forward. The key is really to make electrolyzers as efficient as they possibly can. It's a chemical problem, it's a controls and electronic problem, but the good news is there's all of those opportunities to use those technologies to make electrolyzers for both green and blue hydrogen much more efficient. That's why it's very exciting to see the hydrogen policies that India has passed. So to conclude, companies large and small have all made public commitments. The challenge now is how are they going to meet those? And to meet those, there's never going to be just one solution. It has to be a combination of energy conservation and energy transition. Technology, fortunately, as is through the history of the world, offers amazing solutions to tackle both of these problems, both in the near term and in the long term. At Honeywell, we've committed to being carbon neutral by 2035, and we think that's very achievable. It's not going to be achievable with one or two initiatives. It's achievable across numerous initiatives on both conservation and transition. And that's what I encourage all companies and all governments to do, is look at the wide variety of solutions in order for us to have a real impact with our sustainability practices and policies. Thank you very much.
Satellites. There is no denying humans have launched hundreds of satellites over the past 64 years. A lot has changed since then, from technology to materials and size. But just how much? Street addresses aren't accurate enough to specify precise locations. To address these challenges, pun not intended, who better to talk about the future of addresses than Chris Sheldrick, co-founder and CEO, What 3 Words? We welcome Chris.
The mic coming through? No mic? Good now? Hello, everybody. Hi, I'm Chris. I liked the pun about addresses. So I'd like to talk about the future addresses and what's wrong with addresses. So addresses were made a very long time ago for a very different thing, which was to sort and deliver mail, like hundreds of years ago in many cases, in the case of postcodes, decades ago. But they were not intended for the digital age. And in the case of India, it's a fairly uncontroversial statement whenever I come here that there are problems with accuracy and that they are, in many places, non-existent. But this problem extends far beyond India. I live in a small village in Hertfordshire in the UK. No one can find my house. If you put in my postcode, I have no house number. It will take you to the middle of a field, not to my front door. And I have never received mail first time as long as I've lived. And this is the way that many people around the world, in the UK, in India, we have to go on. But this is a problem which seems to never get fixed. Somebody sent me their address in Bangalore, and I like this because this is the same address which is registered in 4 different ways for 4 different authorities because of the ways that it kind of interacts with different systems here. And I think it's just a great example of how complicated addresses have become. If this is the same address, the 146 kind of has many incarnations as to how we have to get by when we register for different things. I also found duplicate street names quite complicated. In London, we have 14 Church Roads. That is beaten by Delhi, which has 91 Mahatma Gandhi roads. Quite a few in Mumbai as well. And I don't think I'm the first person who's ended up at the wrong place just trying to arrive at a meeting. We also have many other places like where you just have one big site or campus, but you have many places within that site or campus. But on the mapping apps, there's just one name for the whole place, and then you kind of get left to chance as to whether you'll actually find the building that you're looking for. And there's so many unnamed roads. Each of these pins points to a road which doesn't have a name, and this is when we end up with addresses like, well, you follow that road until you have to turn left by the shop and right where the tree used to be. And then we end up with this informal way of reaching places without an address, which I find fairly painful. And if you want to go to a big place, now, of course, the stadiums, everyone knows where the stadiums are, but what happens if you want to arrive at the East Gate, West Gate, or Park, or somewhere around the north? Again, we get stuck with a pin in the middle of the stadium, which is useful if you are the person, if you're playing cricket there, it's very useful. If you want to watch, it is somewhat less useful, but this is the way that life has gone on. And so, a little bit about why I care so passionately about addresses. Yes, no one can find my house ever, but I was a musician, a piano player, and I ran a music business for 10 years where I organized musicians to arrive at events. And what I can tell you is that musicians have an amazing ability to get lost trying to find anywhere. And this hotel is a great example. You've got a wonderful front entrance, but if you were having any kind of performance here, everyone would have to arrive at the back entrance. And I tried to solve this by enforcing the use of latitude and longitude coordinates across the music industry. And I failed because it turns out that guitarists, or frankly anyone, doesn't want to have to type in 24.717.323 degrees north, etc., east or west. Wonderfully accurate system. It exists everywhere. We all learn about it in school with the equator and the tropics. But as a global system that works everywhere, this is not ideal for humans. And I could not get any musicians to use this. Dude, where's the degrees button on my phone? All sorts of troubles I had. So I sat down with a friend of mine and came up with a solution. He is a mathematician called Mohan, and together we kind of devised what would be a simpler way, which was if we took the whole world and we put a grid of 3 meters by 3 meters across the whole world. We could name each single grid square with 3 words from the dictionary instead of using latitude and longitude coordinates. So there are 57 trillion 3-meter squares in the world, and there's just about 57 trillion combinations of 3 random words. So this one here is pirates, tigers, quiet. And each single 3-meter square we have given 3 random words to already around the world, including the oceans, including the North Pole. It has been done. And the system's called What 3 Words. So effectively, what our tech does, it's pretty simple. It's just a formula, an algorithm, which converts a big long set of numbers into a sequence of 3 random words. Much like domain names and IP addresses, this is not the first time words have been used in place of numbers, but it's the first time to make an address system. And it's global. So there is an app, it's called What 3 Words. It's a great way to find and explore the system, and it means that because everyone in this room, we have named your house with 3 words, You can download the app and find out what they are. They will be a different 3 words for the front door and the back door and anywhere around the side. Literally everywhere has already been done. And when you open up the app, it will look like this. You can press a button, and it will show you the 3 words in that place. This is super simple to understand, super simple to click around, and you see the 3 words that have been pre-assigned for any place on the map in the world. And I think this is a really good solution for addresses because it's easier than latitude, longitude. So if you come into our world of 3 words, it means that this 3 meter square here, you can just say a sprayer, dice, wheels, and you can arrive exactly there. This place here is linguists' famous measure, and that applies to this 3 meter square here. Now, we haven't just done this in English. We've done this in 54 languages globally, of which there are 12 languages specific to India. So if you are using Hindi or Bengali, Gujarati, Kannada, Malayalam, etc., you can use this in your first language. I know there's many languages in India, but by doing 12, we've covered a lot of the population as to the language of their choice. And so this is something that people we want to be able to use in their first language and not have to use English or something else. So as we built this system, the first place that we got traction was not the first place in our business plan. It was with the Mongolian Postal Service, who we discovered had an enormous problem with addresses around the country. I don't know if people have been to Mongolia. Enormous and amazing country. Very difficult for the Postal Service to know where to deliver to properties like this, which don't have an address. But fast forward a few years, this system, What 3 Words, is very well known in the UK, where I'm from. I would say it's a household name. If you know anybody British, you could ask them, do you know this, do you use this? And I would guarantee you they'll say yes. You can use it with even 85% of our police, fire and ambulance services. You can call 999. You can give them the 3 words if you want to talk about somewhere remote, that there's a crime or you need something. So it's supported all across our government and used for many, many different things. And so now we see India as a great place to come and develop the system outside of the UK. And how we do this is by integrating this service into third-party platforms. So whilst I talked about an app, which is what everyone builds, and it's a great way to get familiar with this system, our ultimate ambition is to make this app redundant. We are on a mission to make our own app redundant because we want to integrate it with everything else so that you never have to even come to our app. So the first global integration we had was with Mercedes-Benz cars. If you're lucky enough to drive Mercedes-Benz, it's probably in your navigation system already. You may just not know it. And you can type or speak the 3 words directly into the car, and it will take you to that 3 meter square. Now here in India, we've already replicated this with the certain Tata Motors cars. You can do exactly the same. This is already built in. Same with TVS Motors. The navigation system here will support What 3 Words already. And the same with the new Mahindra cars. Again, you can get into that car. And I wonder, this is how it kind of works.
Alexa, ask What 3 Words to navigate to locked blink below.
Locked blink below is 20 kilometers away. Set the destination.
Yes.
Okay, getting directions.
I think the audio happened and the visuals didn't, but you can basically get into any Mahindra car, you speak the 3 words, and it will then navigate you to that 3 meter square, which is pretty cool. So we've got Mahindra, TVS, Tata Motors, and we want to be a standard in India. Whatever car you drive, whatever you're using, you'll go to that 3 meter square. And similarly with e-commerce and delivery, the pain I have in the UK trying to get anything delivered to my house, well, now we're taking that on in India too. So if you order something from Interflora, for example, a nice bouquet of flowers, and you really want it to arrive, if you see at the bottom right here, they now have live on the website a section for What 3 Words, so you can add it to your address, the rest of your address. It just, that help, and it goes to the delivery company, they can convert it into the PIN, goes to the driver's device, and off they go to find exactly where they're looking for. So if you live in this place which is impossible to find, you would add taping Meld's reviewers to that order, and it can then help you get to the destination. Now, globally, we've done partnerships with companies like DHL. Great to see these kind of brands getting on board so that you can use it with DHL. Here in India, we've just launched 2 partnerships. The first with Grab, which is a Reliance brand. Amazing for us to be doing this. And I'm sure people will know as well, DTDC, we just signed a partnership with. If you have the My DTDC app, you can put your 3 words into the app. It will know where you are, or any retailers delivering with DTDC, they can support it as well. So this is mega exciting for us as we take on e-com and logistics here in India, and we're already growing a huge number of Indian partners who will support our system. Now, I just wanted to finish with a couple of other applications. In Maharashtra, the national ambulance of the state is called BVG MEMS, and if you call the emergency number, and let's say you're somewhere outside the main city, you don't know where you are, you can actually give the 3 words over the phone, a bit like I explained in the UK with our police, fire and ambulance. You can now do that in Maharashtra. We want to do that elsewhere in India, but it's already live and saving lives every day when people really struggle to communicate where they are and they need help quickly. Another great project we're doing in Bangalore is with an NGO, a social impact firm called Pollinate Energy. They give solar lights into slum areas. And for a lot of NGOs in those kind of places, it's really difficult to understand exactly where those places are, the houses are. And so they use What 3 Words to enable them to give those solar lights to the right places. So that's a bit of overview on how I and we see the future of addressing. The app is called What 3 Words. Please do download it. Please find the 3 words for your front door in the language of your choice. And thank you so much, everybody. That's me. Thank you.
On the note, let's talk about design. More specifically, designing for communities. Design codes have been part of the planning system for several years, but alas, only in fits and starts. It is now time to bring them to the forefront. The purpose of design codes is to set out clear expectations for design quality, beauty, and sustainability. May I invite Michael Hickenbotham, Managing Director, Hickenbotham Group, to please talk about the design code in developing communities. Please welcome Mr. Hickenbotham.
Good afternoon. I'm Michael Hickenbotham, and today I'm definitely not going to talk about cricket. But what I will do is show you how private housing delivers dignity, builds community, and enables a new way of living post-COVID. Citizens the world over now want to live different, and by this I mean live better in stronger communities, in places where family and community values can thrive. Join me for a glimpse into a better future. Now, firstly, it's worth noting and celebrating, I think, that the Indian housing market is doing extremely well. Research shows that housing affordability in India has been improving across your major markets over the past 10 years. Now that, for a country that is growing so fast, is a stunning achievement. Congratulations, it is a phenomenal thing. India has reason to be incredibly proud of what you've accomplished, because sadly, the opposite is taking place in Australia and other international housing markets, where housing affordability has plummeted. By taking heed of what is occurring elsewhere in the world, and by avoiding a policy of urban containment, which I'll outline to you today, there is an opportunity for India to avoid a similar fate. And it may be, Now, since 1954, 3 generations of my family have devoted our lives to building high-quality, affordable, beautiful homes and communities. In almost 70 years, we have developed more than 60 community estates, we've built more than 45,000 homes, and we've provided housing for over 100,000 Australians. And that little guy, second on the right, is just over here. His hair's grown a little bit since. So stand up, Henry. Why? Because we believe in the power of home ownership to transform lives for the better. And many of you will be familiar with that amazing feeling when you first walk into your first home for the first time. That feeling of joy, of being part of a community, of having shelter from the storm, confidence and security. And it all adds up to an intense feeling of pride. That's the power of home ownership, the power to improve and transform lives. Aristotle was perhaps one of humanity's greatest thinkers. Just over 2,000 years ago, he understood that housing is much more than shelter and a place to raise a family. It's a stake in the ground and an investment in the future. And it's essential to a healthy democracy. Homeowners want their communities and their common wealth to succeed, to thrive, and to pass on to the next generation. Without housing and without private home ownership, there isn't that same commitment to making communities work. And that's as true today as it was in Aristotle's time. This chart from the United Nations shows the slowing rate of growth in the world's future population. The fertility rate has dropped, and so fewer babies translates over time to shallower labour pools. Even in India, the total fertility rate will fall below replacement this year, according to a UN projection. The most valuable resource home. And when they do achieve home ownership, they take a photo, they post it to Instagram, they share it with friends and family back home. Accessible, affordable housing is the bait, is the lure, it's the incentive, it's the best that best attracts the kind of skilled workers that our cities and our nations need going forward. But there's a big problem. Housing the world over has become very expensive. And so this raises a logical question. Why is housing so expensive? The answer is self-evident to anyone in the building industry in any major capital city. And that is the policy of urban containment that is pursued with missionary zeal by governments the world over. The narrative is virtually always the same. Urban sprawl is unsustainable. It requires large-scale transportation infrastructure. Cities must be contained, communities must be densified. This is a depiction of my city of Adelaide, where I live. The red and the green are no-go areas. Essentially, there is a Berlin Wall around this city. You cannot develop for residential purposes in any of those zones. So that's why we've gone from 3 times median multiple 30 years ago, just above 3, to now 9.5 times. More expensive than London for a city of 1.4 million people. And this begs the question, is there a better way? Well, I believe there is. The solution is to live different. And this is a concept that's been facilitated by the pandemic. It's no coincidence, I think, that the magic of jazz music, the energy of the Charleston dance, were popularised after the calamity of World War I. Because after war, after calamity, and maybe after the pandemic, there's been in the past and there will be in the future an appetite to boldly reimagine how life should be lived. But before I get to how life might be lived differently, let me take you to Japan. As societies become wealthier, as they become better educated, and as cities become denser, fertility rates plummet. This is an incredibly powerful force. Japan on the left in 1982 had a large cohort of young people coming through. By 2022, the shape of Japan's demography on the right had changed because of falling fertility. Their fertility rate is 1.36 today. Replacement is 2.1. So demographics is destiny. There are not enough young people coming through, and while the situation in Japan is extreme, these demographic forces are a runaway train, rapidly gathering pace throughout the developed world. There simply aren't enough young working taxpayers. And this is why young and skilled workers who are prepared to migrate are a valuable resource for which countries and cities will compete fiercely in the 2020s and beyond. And part of the competitive offering of each city will be their ability to deliver housing, the stuff of democracy, the glue that holds communities together, the heart and soul of a nation, and the thing that encourages young workers to work, to pay tax, and to maintain and even lift our living standards. So what's the solution? Interestingly, it can be found in the world's response to COVID. COVID upended the world the way life and work has changed forever. And this is especially true in the matter of working from home, an important game changer across the developed and developing world. In Australia, the proportion of the workforce working from home remained at 5% for 25 years. This jumped to 21% during the COVID epidemic. People have taken a liking to this idea of working from home. They have acquired the technology, they've learned how to Zoom to facilitate this fundamental shift in how workplace value is delivered. This slide shows a reversal from previous Australian censuses. The fast and growing areas around Australian cities and cities throughout the world are no longer the inner city areas, but the lifestyle zones that are attached to the urban fringe. So imagine saying to a modern-day millennial in Mumbai, in Sydney, in London, in New York, great news, the pandemic's over, you can now go back to commuting for 2 hours every weekday for the next 30 years for the rest of your career. They won't go back to commuting. And why should they? They've seen a better way, and they will now only commute on an as-need basis. And in so doing, our city's focal points have shifted from the magnetism of the all-powerful, all-alluring central business district to the safety of the new work-friendly lifestyle home. In this world, the city is transformed. Out with the fried egg city and its job-rich central business district yoke, surrounded by densification, congestion, and house price escalation. These pre-pandemic cities are breaking up, scrambling, if you like, into a series of interconnected 20-minute cities. Workers no longer want to commute, and when they work from home, the requirement to commute is lessened. It enlivens formerly dormant dormitory suburbs. It enables the cities to grow outward into cheaper land, bundled up into a series of self-contained 20-minute communities, lifestyle communities. These cities offer skilled migrants a better quality of life, a better chance at home ownership, and the nation as a whole is thus better able to attract the best and the brightest from across the globe. Of course, cities and nations can ignore this insight and continue constraining cities as they've always done. But frankly, the people will do what they want, and this change in preferences is largely beyond the ability of urban planning to materially influence. Meanwhile, cities that respond to this innate desire by workers